Hi everyone, today we're going to be solving AQA GCSE Biology Foundation Tier Paper 2F June 2022. Maple syrup urine disease is a rare inherited human condition. The allele for MSUD is recessive. What is a recessive allele? A recessive allele is a type of allele when it needs to be present in both of the chromosomes inherited from both of the parents. So it needs to be homozygous in order to be expressed. An example, for example, small h and small h, homozygous. Only then, in those cases, this particular allele will be expressed in the phenotype. So guys, let's see the option. An allele expressed only if a person has two copies of the allele. Guys, this will be the correct answer because it needs to be homozygous. Both of the copies must be recessive. Let's see the other options. An allele expressed only if inherited from male parent. So this one is wrong because in this case the allele needs to be dominant. An allele expressed when it is found only one of the chromosomes. Both cases, alright, it's wrong because in both cases, if it is a dominant character, then it is acceptable. Figure 1 shows the inheritance of MSUD in one family. We can see the male without the MSUD and the female without the with the MSUD and the female without the MSUD. We can see a particular parent who does not have MSUD but has a child with MSUD. This tells us that both of these parents are carrier. So we can refer to it in this way. Let's say MSUD, alright, not having MSUD is capital H and having MSUD is small h. Okay, so in this case, both of the parents are capital H, small h, capital H, small h, because they don't have the disease itself. However, they have a child who has MSUD, so must be small h and small h. Now, for 4 and 5, it is difficult to tell their genotype because they can either be capital H, or capital H and small h. They can be both. The symbol box with a black is not the key for figure 1. What would this symbol represent? So since a box is representing a male, so we would say this would be a male with MSUD. Person 1 and 2 in figure 1 have a child with MSUD and some children without MSUD. Complete figure 2 to show the possible genotypes of the children. So we will see capital N is allele for not having MSUD, which is dominant, over the small n, which is the allele with MSUD. We can see capital N and small n, and small n and small n. To find out this particular which one is the genotype, we will always point from the gametes of person 1 and person 2, and the resulting child, the phenotype, the genotype of the child is represented in that way. What is the phenotype of a person with capital N and small n? This person has one capital N. That means the person will not have MSUD. The reason for this will be since not MSUD is dominant. What percentage of the offspring in figure 2 will have MSUD? Looking from the diagram, we can see there are 3 out of the 4. 3 out of the 4 has capital N. So when we will multiply this with 100, this would give us a percentage of 75. 75% will not have MSUD. So the question asking what percent of the offspring will have MSUD? So it will be 100 minus 75, which is 25. Which scientific term describes the capital N? Capital N is representing dominant here. Alleles are found in the nucleus of a cell. What chemical substance are alleles made from? We know that alleles are made from DNA. So we will say that it is made from DNA. Other acceptable answer can be deoxyribonucleic acid, alright, the full form of DNA, or nucleotides. People with MSUD must eat a special diet to reduce their intake of some types of amino acid. Which component of the diet is made of amino acid? So basically proteins, the building blocks of proteins are amino acids. So protein will be the answer. Let's see why the other points are not correct. Carbohydrates are made from typically glucose. And minerals obviously does not need, minerals are just minerals, alright? So it consists of some ions, does not consist of amino acid. Many human actions are reflexes. Which statement describes a reflex action? So a reflex action is considered as a involuntary action where the brain is notified of the action but does not give a conscious decision. Let's see the options. A reflex action does not need a sense organ. A reflex action also requires a sense organ but does not require a basically the function of the brain. Let's see the next option. Reflex action is a slow action. No, it's very fast and it is automatic. So the last one will be correct. It is automatic, involuntary. Figure 3 shows the nerve pathway for a reflex action. The arrows shows the direction of nerve impulses. So from A, which is the fingertip, the impulses travel through the sensory neuron. Now in the synapse, the impulse is then transferred into neurotransmitter. They cross this particular gap as a neurotransmitter, as a chemical, then go to relay neuron in the spinal cord. C is the spinal cord, and then it goes to the motor neuron into the muscle, which is the effector. Let's label it. B is motor neuron and muscle is the effector, whereas C in this case is the spinal cord. Draw one line from each part of the nerve pathways to the name of that part. So A, all right. So definitely A is the receptor. Now B, in this case, B is the motor neuron. And C, which is the spinal cord. Which two human actions are reflexes? Blinking when an insect flies into the eyes. Definitely it is a reflex. You do not have the time to consciously make that effort. Catching a ball in a playground game. This one is it's a thought process that goes on in order for you to catch the particular ball. So definitely not a reflex. Playing a musical instrument is also a conscious action. Removing the hand from a hot object is a automatic action. So definitely this is the reflex. Writing a message to a friend is definitely a conscious action, so thereby not reflex. Any decision making that involves the use of the brain definitely will not be counted as reflex. Students investigated their reaction time using a computer program. Figure 4 shows a sequence of 2 screens in the computer program. Get ready and then touch. So the red screen means you have to get ready and green screen means you have to touch. This is the method used. Open the reaction time program. When the screen turns red to green, touch the screen as quickly as possible. Record the reaction time shown on the screen. Reset the red screen. Repeat steps 2 to 4 more times. Repeat steps 1 to 5 for each student. The table 1 shows the results. So let's see what are the tests. There are 5 tests in total, and then there is student P with their reaction time in milliseconds and followed by student Q, R, and S. Okay. Whenever going through any information like this, we have to look into whether there is a anomalous result or not. So we can see in this one, there is an anomalous result, which is much higher than the student R's other reaction time. Then that's the only anomalous result that we can see within the data. The question says calculate the mean value of X in table 1. So to calculate the mean value, we will add up all of the numbers. Then we will divide it by the set of number, which is 5. So the answer comes 312. There is an anomalous result for student R. Draw a ring around the anomalous result. So we have already done it. and we can see what's the reason. It does not fit the trend. 635 is way too high of a result compared to the other results provided by the student R. Give two factors that might affect a person's reaction time. So if a particular person has any kind of medicine or the person is tired, their reaction time will be slower. Okay. Gender, or basically the sex of the particular person, can also affect their reaction time. Okay. Age of the person, and their use of any kind of drugs, either recreational or medical drugs. A plant shoot responds to the stimulus of light shining on it from one side. What name is given to the type of response shown by the plant shoot? Since we are shining light from one direction, it must be a type of tropism. The other points are homeostasis. The reason why it is not current is because it's the maintenance of constant internal environment. And in terms of adaptation, it's an inherited feature that helps an organism to survive better. A student investigated the effect of one-sided light on the growth of plant seedlings. Figure 5 shows how the student set up the investigation. Okay, let's see. We can see light coming from left side, shoot the seed, damp cotton wool is holding the seed, and we're seeing a light-proof card box. Okay, in experiment 2. Draw one line from each of the experiment what the seedling would look like after 12 hours. So after 12 hours, one of the seedling would have a growth towards the left. Seedling 1 would have a growth towards the left because it is exposed to light from one direction. Whereas the seedling 2 would grow straight, but it would be longer because it is trying to reach light, but since it doesn't have a stimulation, so it just keeps on growing against the gravity. Why did the student set up experiment 2 in this investigation? The student want to show that the response in the experiment 1 is caused by one-sided light. So the second experiment is acting as a control. We can either write any one of the points. The student wanted to make the investigation of the effect of one-sided light more valid. The student decided to set up a third experiment. How should the student set up the third experiment? Let's see the option. The first option says give no water to the third seedling. Without water, the seedlings will survive, so water must be kept constant. So without the water, the seedling wouldn't survive. That's why the water needs to be kept constant. Shine light from all sides and on the third seedling. Yes. So this is also another control, that effect of light from all direction will not cause the plant to bend. The third point, turn the third seedling upside down. Making it upside down will not show phototropism, but rather will show the effect of gravity. What is a suitable control variable for the investigation? One control variable should be temperature. So let's see the options. Keep each seedling at the same temperature. Keep each seedling the same height above the floor. This usually doesn't affect the growth of the seedling, so we will indicate it. Use the same size cardboard box for each seedling. Okay, this is also not very important as long as the space within the box is adequate enough. Give one stimulus a plant would respond to, but do not refer to light in your answer. We can say gravity. So gravitropism or gravity. Plant also respond to other things. Those are presence of water. Wherever the water is present, root will tend to grow towards that direction. Or we can say minerals. Availability of minerals from one direction can also stimulate the root to grow in that direction. Scientists often repeat investigation several times. Give two reasons why. One of the reasons for repeating several times is that every experiment may produce a variation in the result. So the scientists want to calculate average by eliminating the anomalous results. The mean value or the average value would be very close to the typical value. We have to write only 2 points, so choose any one that you like. Rivers are sometimes polluted with untreated sewage. Figure 6 shows some changes that occurred when untreated sewage entered a river. We can see the number of organisms as the sewage water entered the river increased, specifically in terms of bacteria. But then at site A and site B, and as the distance down the river increases, the number of bacteria decreases. However, the number of green algae initially, before the sewage entered the river, was constant. Then it decreased immediately and then started to increase rapidly up it reached site B. After site B, the green algae decreases back again and almost coming back to normal level. The number of protozoa before the sewage entered was low, but increased immediately after the sewage entered the river, and then after crossing site A, the number decreased back again slowly as it crossed site B back to normal. Which type of organism had the most rapid increase in number when sewage entered the river? So from that explanation, we can see bacteria. Protozoa are single-celled organisms. Described two ways. Figure 6 shows that protozoa in the river feed on bacteria. As you can see from this particular diagram, the number of bacteria decreases and it follows with the number of protozoa increasing, meaning the protozoa are feeding on the bacteria. But as the number of bacteria decrease even further, then the protozoa starts to decrease back again, returning back to normal. So we can say that number of protozoa is dependent on bacteria, meaning it feeds on bacteria. The way we can represent the answer is this. The number of bacteria increases before protozoa increase, and as the protozoa increase, bacteria decreases. Or we can say when bacteria are high, protozoa increases in number, and as bacteria decreases, protozoa also decrease. So both of these options are correct. When sewage enters a river, the concentration of dissolved oxygen decreases. The decrease in oxygen concentration is caused by organisms in the water. What process in living organism uses oxygen? Decreased oxygen concentration can be judged by a decrease in dissolved oxygen concentration. It's due to respiration, and specifically aerobic respiration uses of oxygen. To score this particular number, the word aerobic is not necessary. So you may choose not to write it as well. As the number of green algae in the river increase, the concentration of dissolved oxygen increases. Explain why the concentration of dissolved oxygen increases. Green algae are photosynthetic organisms. So they can do photosynthesis and produce oxygen. So we will give the answer as in this way. Algae carry out photosynthesis which produces oxygen. Scientists counted the number of 5 different animals in the river at sites A and B, shown in figure 6 on page 14. Table 2 shows the result. Animal, sludge worm at site A, 80, and site B, 2. Bloodworm, site A, 36, and site B, 8. Water louse, site A, 10, site B, 55. We can say for the first two animals, their number were positively impacted by the introduction of sewage. They were positively, impacted. Whereas water louse, freshwater shrimp, mayfly nymph, all of them, they were negatively impacted. So site B is down the stream, and when we see the number of organisms in site B has increased, that means we can easily say that the introduction of sewage negatively impacted them in the first portion, which is the site A. Figure 7 shows some of the data in table 2, site A, site B. Complete figure 7, you should use the data in table 2 for the sludge worm and bloodworm. So for the sludge worm, we can see the site B is already done. So 80, 3 boxes need to be taken, and we'll stretch the line up until 80. So that's for the sludge worm. And for the bloodworm, 36 and 8. Again, cover up 3 boxes. For the site B, it's just 8 only, since it is shaded. And for site A, it's 36. Alright. The concentration of oxygen in the water at site A is much lower than at site B. Sludge worm live in places which have low concentration of oxygen. Mayfly nymphs need a high concentration of oxygen. Give evidence from table 2 for the differences in oxygen concentration at site A and B. Refer to sludge worm and to mayfly nymphs in your answer. So this answer can be simply done in this way. If we look into site B, we can see there is more number of mayfly nymph than the site A, because site A has literally 0. But when it comes to sludge worm, there is highest number in the site A, which has very high concentration of sewage compared to site B. So we will write down the answer in this way. More sludge worm at site A than at site B, and then for the mayfly, we will write no mayfly nymphs at site A, and mayfly nymphs are present at site B. In the human female, an egg is released from one of the ovaries once every 4 weeks. During the 4 weeks, the lining of the uterus thickens and then breaks down. This is called the menstrual cycle. Which two hormones are female reproductive hormones? So adrenaline is a fight or flight hormone. Estrogen, thickens the lining of the uterus. Progesterone thickens and maintains the lining of the uterus. Testosterone, male hormone, and it develops male secondary characteristics. Thyroxine, released by the thyroid gland, it increases heat production from liver. So from this we can see estrogen and progesterone, they are female hormone because they are involved in the lining of the uterus. Follicle stimulating hormone is another female reproductive hormone. What is the function of FSH in menstrual cycle? FSH causes an egg to mature in the ovary. Yes. FSH main job is to stimulate follicle, as the name suggests. All right. So it stimulates the follicle in the ovary to mature. FSH causes breast development. Breast development is triggered by estrogen. FSH causes the uterus lining to break down. Uterus lining breakdown is triggered by decrease in estrogen and progesterone. Sperm cells can survive inside a woman's reproductive organ for 5 days. An egg cell can survive for 1 day after ovulation. In one woman, ovulation occurred at day 14. Give the range of days on which sexual intercourse could result in fertilization. From day 9 to day 15. Now, how did we come up with this particular conclusion? Because sperm cell can survive for 5 days. So 14 minus 5 was day 9. So if sperm was deposited at day 9, it could fertilize the egg cell. And since the egg cell only lives for 1 day and survive only for 1 day, so if if there was a sexual intercourse on day 15, there could still be a chance because 14 plus 1 on the 14th day it got released plus 1 day the egg survives. So total 15 days, up to 15 days. If a man and a woman have sexual intercourse and do not want to produce a baby, they may use contraception. Explain how different methods of contraception prevent pregnancy. This question has 6 marks. To get a level 2 answer, we have to have a scientifically correct and logically linked answer. So there are a few methods of contraceptives. For each one of them, we can mention 2 points and move on. Starting with oral contraceptive. It contains hormones, either estrogen or progesterone, to prevent a follicle from maturing or from ovulating. Then the second method is injections or implants or skin patches. This also contains hormone to prevent follicle from maturing or prevents ovulation. Then there is condoms or femidoms. These are barrier method. This prevents sperm from reaching eggs and thereby prevents the sperm entering the woman's body or vagina. So since the sperm cannot enter the woman's body, so sperm is unable to fertilize the egg cell. And there is diaphragm. This also prevents the sperm from reaching the egg. However, diaphragm may use some chemicals to kill the sperm as well. IUD. IUD prevents implantation. IUD may release hormone or may contain copper, which may release copper ions, which prevents either ovulation if they are using hormone and releases copper ions which can prevent the uterus lining from thickening up. Other thing that it can does also, it can make the mucus in the cervix very, very sticky, so the sperm cannot pass through. And then there can be some creams like spermicide, which directly kills sperm, or other methods include sterilization, where either a vasectomy or a tubular ligation is done, all right, which prevents the passage of sperm, or it prevents the egg cell from coming for fertilization. And then there is also rhythm method, where no egg is available for fertilization. To score the full mark, we do not need to give all of this point. However, let's say we have to at least give 6 points. Okay, so the process and how it works, that will be 2 point considered. So you have to write any 3 of these points with complete method of like how it works. Choose any 3 from this and write the name, the process, and how it works. The echidna is a mammal that lives in Australia. Figure 8 shows an echidna. Figure 9 shows how the body temperature of the echidna varies during cold winter months. So we can see body temperature rises a maximum of, body temperature rises a maximum of 34 degrees Celsius, and a lowest of 1 degree Celsius. Give the lowest and highest body temperature for echidna shown in figure 9. So the lowest body temperature is 1 degree Celsius and highest body temperature is 34 degrees Celsius. In the cold winter months, the echidna hibernates. Figure 9 shows the echidna woke up from hibernation several times. The echidna's body temperature increases to over 30 degrees Celsius each time echidna woke up. How many times did the echidna wake up? So let's have a look. So total time in weeks given here is 10 weeks. Each time it wakes up, the body temperature rises. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So within a period of 10 weeks, it wakes up 5 times. Each time the echidna wakes up, it hunts for food. Suggest why echidna needs to eat food several times during hibernation. So echidna requires energy even during hibernation in the form of respiration, right? So that it can have stored food, in its body, and it does not run out of the stored food in its body, or we can say so that glycogen does not run out in its body. Since it is only 1 mark, we just have to write 1 point. During hibernation, the echidna sleeps. The echidna's body temperature decreases to below 5 degrees Celsius. The echidna uses food stored in its body cells to provide energy. What process releases energy from stored food? So the process of releasing energy from stored food would be respiration. Let's see why the other options are not correct. Excretion is the process of removal of waste. Example, carbon dioxide and urea. Diffusion is the movement of substances with the concentration gradient. Most mammals use a lot of energy to evaporate sweat. The echidna does not sweat. Suggest one use of energy in the echidna's body. The echidna needs to do muscle contraction to keep itself warm, or it needs to grow or repair itself, and active transport of substances need to be done within the body, or movement, which basically refers to muscle contraction. Any one of those points will be needed to get this particular mark because it says suggest one use. So we just have to give a use of energy in echidna's body other than sweat. The control of body temperature is important in the human body. An athlete trained in hot climate, on one day the athlete lost 3,200 cm3 of water in sweat. The evaporation of 1 cm3 water requires 2.5 kilojoules of energy. Calculate the energy that the athlete used for evaporation of sweat. So since 1 cm3 requires 2.5 kilojoules and the athlete had a sweat of 3,200, so we will multiply both of these numbers and it gives us 8,000 kilojoules. On a different day, the athlete used 6,000 kilojoules of energy to evaporate sweat. The athlete's energy intake was 24,000 kilojoules. Calculate the percentage of the athlete's energy intake used for evaporation of sweat. So the athlete lost 6,000 kilojoules in sweat over 24,000, the total consumption, times 100 will give us the percentage, 25%. Some days the athlete did not do any training and rested at home. What effect would resting have on the volume of sweat production produced each day? So basically the volume will be much lower. We will say reduced volume. We cannot say no sweating because technically a person cannot prevent sweating. Living organisms can be classified into groups. Trilobites are animals that lived in sea 400 to 500 million years ago. Table 3 gives classification of 2 species of trilobite. We can see trilobite A and Animalia in both cases. So the first one is the kingdom. Then we can see the phylum, class, order, family. Before species, we always have the genus, and finally, it leads to species. So the last two are the original name, which we can see Elratia kingi and Modosia typicalis. We had to, okay. Now choose answer from the box. All right, we already finished it, so it's fine. Let's see why the other ones are not correct. So it refers to mammal, which is not any of the kingdom or genus. Population. So let's see the definition for each one of them. Mammal, any animal that has mammary gland. Population. It is referred to as all members in the same species living in a particular geographical area at the particular time. Community is group of organisms, group of different species of organisms living in the same area and interacting. The genus is the first part of the binomial naming system, and kingdom refers to the classification of an organism. So it is the start. Which scientist invented the classification system in table 3? So the classification system, we will always go for Linnaeus. Linnaeus, he did the classification of living organism. When it comes to Darwin and Lamarck, we will know that they talked about the theory of evolution, and Mendel, he studied inheritance. What is the binomial name of trilobite A? So the trilobite A, the binomial will be Ilratia kingi. Figure 10 shows the fossils of two species of trilobites. Figure 11 shows the layers of rock in a cliff where the trilobite fossils were found. So we can see trilobite A at a lower level and trilobite B at a higher level and river at a lower level. Now, a scientist made the hypothesis trilobite B may have evolved from trilobite A. What two pieces of evidence from figure 10 shows figure 11 support the scientist's hypothesis? So let's look into the option. Trilobite A and trilobite B were in the same type of rock. So this does not show that they are evolving from one another. This shows that they were present at the same time. Trilobite A was found in older rocks than trilobite B. Yes, this could be possible because one organism was totally extinct and then second organism was found, since one is after the other. Trilobite B has a smaller mass than trilobite A. This does not signify the trilobite B may have evolved from trilobite A. Trilobite B is different color from trilobite A. Different color cannot also talk about that one organism has evolved from another. So trilobite B is more complex than trilobite A. This is definitely complex organism developed much later than simpler organism. So trilobite A simpler and trilobite B complex, so must have evolved in this direction. Trilobites are animals that lived in the sea. Complete the sentences about how the fossils of trilobite A and B were formed. Let's see. The animal dies and falls to the seabed. The animal is buried in. Definitely the burial can take place only with sediments. The dash of the animal decay. So we can say the soft parts of the animal usually tend to decay, right? So soft parts. The remains which do not decay are replaced by minerals. So the remains, which are the bones, are replaced by minerals, and that made it rocky. Trilobites A and B are now extinct. Give three possible causes of extinction. Guys, whenever the possibilities of extinction comes and the examiner asks us, if it is an aquatic organism, first go for drought, ice age, global warming, volcanic activity, asteroid collision, new predator, new disease, competition for food, competition for mates, and lack of habitat. All of these is a common answer when it comes to the answer for extinction. Just one reason why scientists cannot be sure what caused the trilobites to become extinct. Whenever this particular answer comes in, guys, because this is a reason that we are supposed to give a suggestion of, so it has a very common answer, that is insufficient evidence, all right, cannot perform an experiment to find out. So any one of those 2 points we can write out. There are two types of reproduction. One is sexual reproduction, the other one is asexual reproduction. Complete table 4 to compare asexual reproduction with sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, cell division occurs. Yes, asexual reproduction, also cell division occurs. In fertilization occurs. Well, in sexual reproduction, fertilization occurs, but in asexual reproduction, fertilization doesn't occur. Genes are passed on from parent to offspring. In both cases, genes are passed on from parent to offspring. Offsprings are genetically identical to each other. Only in the asexual reproduction it will be identical. Sexual reproduction will not produce genetically identical offspring. Gametes are formed in sexual reproduction. Name the male gamete formed in flowering plant. The male gamete formed in flowering plant would be pollen. Cell division by meiosis forms gametes. Figure 12 shows the mean mass of DNA per cell before, during, and after meiosis. So mass of DNA per cell in arbitrary units is 4, then it doubles to 8, goes down to 4 again, then halves to 2. So we can say this particular increase is before the cell goes from meiosis 1. This stage is meiosis, and the second one is meiosis. When is the DNA in the chromosome being copied? All right. The DNA in the chromosome is copied between 3 and the 4 hours. We can see because the doubling occurs at that time. So it will be between 3 and 4 hours. Cells divide during meiosis, which 2 times in figure 12 shows one cell division into 2 cells. So one cell division into 2 cells occurs first of all at hour 5 and then at hour 6. So 5 and 6 will be the answer. What is the mean mass of DNA in arbitrary units in a sperm cell? So the mean mass of DNA in sperm cell, in this case, we can see from the diagram, it's 2. The sperm cell contains 2 arbitrary units. What is the mean mass of DNA in arbitrary units in each cell in an embryo? So in an embryo, the mean mass would be 4 because the egg cell will fuse with the sperm cell to produce the embryo. So where they will be 4. Earthworms live in soil, feed on dead and decaying plant matter, have soft and moist skin, exchange gases through their skin, give 2 abiotic factors and 2 biotic factors that could affect the size of an earthworm population. When talking about abiotic are factors that are non-living. So minerals in soil, oxygen, availability of water, these are abiotic factors. Biotic factors are living factors. So things like predators, also microorganism, bacteria, fungi, disease-causing organism, etc. So abiotic factors. So in abiotic factors, we can write water, oxygen, pH of soil, mineral ions, temperature of the soil, size of the soil particle, etc. The biotic factors are the availability of food, predators, or any disease-causing organism, pathogens, bacteria, fungi. They will be biotic factor, all the living factors. Student investigated the population of earthworm in the soil in 2 different areas. Area A, a grass lawn. Area B, a farmer's field. Chemical X can be mixed with water and poured onto soil. The mixture brings earthworm to the surface of the soil but does not harm the earthworm. Plan an investigation using chemical X to compare the number of earthworms per meter squared in areas A and B. To score a level 2 answer for this one, we have to have this scientifically correct and logically linked. Sorry, my bad. To get a level 3 for this particular question, we must give a method that would lead to the production of a valid outcome, and it must be logically linked. Since we are planning this experiment for a area A, which is a grass lawn, and an area B, which is a farmer's field, first of all, we can say the same concentration of chemical X is applied to both type of soil. Same volume of chemical X is applied. So we can say same volume and same concentration. Then we can say the same size of area is sampled in both of the areas, which in this case, we can mention, we don't need to mention it like every time. We can mention for one area and then we can talk about repeating for another area. Okay. In each case, the same size of quadrant was used and the quadrant was placed randomly. Same time between application and collecting worms, like, once the chemical X is poured, maybe the worm was counted after like 2 hours. Okay. And then, a particular method in which we can make it random, like placing the quadrant randomly using random number generating app. By counting the number of worms in each areas A and B, at least 5 repeats were done, where average was done for both areas A and B. Then calculation, for the whole area, the total areas of A and B were done, and then the data was compared. Guys, in order to score the 6 mark, this entire answer will be needed. So make sure you can write all of the points nicely. Let's see the marking points. All right. It is important to control the concentration of glucose in blood. Figure 11 shows the concentration of glucose in the blood of a person changed over 4 hours. We can see the blood glucose concentration was between 4 and 4.5. It rises after a meal is eaten to 6.0, and then the blood glucose concentration again dips down to 4.3, 4.2, and then rises to 4.35. Back again. Give one time when the concentration of insulin in the person's blood would be high. So insulin in the person's blood will be high, obviously, when it reaches between 1 and 1.5 hours. So we can say at 1.5 hours. because at this point, the blood glucose concentration is like the highest. Explain the effect of high concentration of insulin has on blood glucose concentration. So, effect. High insulin concentration will lower blood glucose concentration. The effect will be lower. And the explanation will be glucose is taken into the liver cells or muscles, or glucose is taken up by cells. Generally, any one of those points will be okay. Or we can write glucose is converted to glycogen in cells. Again, it can be it can be said for liver cells and muscle cells. And then glucose is used in respiration by cells or liver cells and muscle cells. In all cases, we can include liver cells and muscle cells. People with diabetes have difficulty controlling the concentration of glucose in their blood. Type 2 diabetes is linked to obesity. Figure 14 shows how to find if an adult's body mass is healthy for their height. We can see body mass in kilogram and height in meters. And we can then see whether they are underweight, healthy weight, or overweight, or obese, depending on this particular graph. Person A is 1.75 meters in height, has a body mass of 52. What is person A's category? So we'll have to correlate 2 points, 1.75 and 52. So first of all, we'll go 1.75, which is here, which is in this particular range, 1.75. Okay. Then we will go for 52. 52 is here. We will go straight at 52. So the person is underweight, as we can see. Person B is 1.9 meter in height. Give the range of body masses that would put person B in the healthy weight category, ranging from this many kilos to this many kilos. Okay. So we'll have to give the range. So let's see the person's body height, 1.9. Again, we'll go at 1.9 and draw a full line. And then a healthy weight would be starting from, let's say, 68 and 91. So between 68 and 91. The mass scheme says up to 90, so let's just write up until 90. Person C is obese. A doctor thinks that person C has type 2 diabetes. The doctor tests a sample of blood from person C. The results of the blood test. The mean result for people who do not have diabetes. Cholesterol in millimole per dm cube, glucose in millimole per dm cube, and insulin in arbitrary units. So let's see, person C. Mean for people who do not have diabetes is much lower, and in person C, the amount of cholesterol is higher, the amount of glucose is higher, and amount of insulin is also higher. Type 2 diabetes occurs when body cells have reduced response to insulin. Give 2 ways the result of blood tests show that person C might have type 2 diabetes. So 2 indicators that can show that the person C has type 2 diabetes is the blood glucose concentration is much higher than normal people, and blood glucose concentration of insulin is almost double of normal. So these 2 can be an indicator. So we can write person C has higher blood glucose than mean, and person C has higher insulin than mean. Give 2 ways that a person can reduce the chance of developing type 2 diabetes. The person can decrease body weight and do more exercise and eat less carbohydrate containing food. Now guys, decreasing body weight is an optional point. So we will go for do more exercise and eat less carbohydrate in their diet. Alright guys, that's the end of this particular question paper. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next video guys. Bye-bye.